everyone, welcome to this video. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this monthly calendar checklist. So the way it works is you start off with a blank template and you're going to select the start date from cell B3. So you double click on the cell and then whatever start date you select, that's what you're going to see on the first day. And then the rest of the calendar will adapt accordingly. So as you can see, this date is highlighted, and no matter what start date I select, February 14 is always highlighted because February 14 is the current day. So we're going to add that feature as well. And once you set your start date, you can begin to add tasks into your checklist. And as soon as you start checking boxes, you're going to see the progress bars are moving and you're going to get this scratching effect on each one of these tasks. So if you would like to learn how I made this, you can keep watching. I'm also going to leave the link in the description. So if you run into any issues throughout the tutorial and you would like to compare your formulas against mine, you have the file available. And once you have the file, I suggest that you keep a blank copy, just so if you need to create multiple tabs, you can just use that to right click and then duplicate. So you can do that as many times as you want. So you can keep different calendars for different things, but make sure to always keep a blank copy so you don't have to delete stuff in a calendar. It's easier to just duplicate the blank one, set a different start date, and then start over. So let's go ahead and create our calendar. We're going to start with a blank spreadsheet, and as usual, I suggest that you do everything exactly in the same cells that I'm doing it, just so if you run into any issues, you can compare your formulas against mine and everything will be in exactly the same place. So we're going to start on cell B2 and we're going to add the label start date. And then right below, that's where our user is going to click and is going to select a date from the tiny calendar that appears, but we're going to add that later. So for now, we're just going to add a border to cell B3 to remember that that's where our user is going to select a date. So I'm going to click on borders and then I'm going to select the black one and then I'm going to click on outer borders. So I'm going to leave this for now and I'm going to come back later. I'm just going to make column A a bit smaller and I'm going to start by creating this section right here. So I'm going to start by adding this space for our checkboxes and for our task. So on our blank spreadsheet, I'm going to select everything from cell D8 to cell E14. And whenever I select a range, you're going to see that range selected up here. So you can always check that you selected the proper range by looking at this corner over here. So you select everything from cell D8 to cell E14, and we're going to give that a border. So again, we're going to click on borders and we're going to leave it black and then outer borders. So this is where checklist will be. And then I'm going to make column D a bit smaller since this is the space for the checkbox. And then I'm going to make column E a bit wider since that's the space for the tasks. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my checkboxes. So I'm going to select everything from cell D8 to cell D14 and I'm going to click on Insert Checkbox. So now that I have the space for my checkboxes, I want to create the space for my progress bars. So right above the checkboxes, you have the percentage and then you have the progress bars. So let's add a temporary percentage that will act as a placeholder for now. So I'm going to do 50% on cell D7. And I'm actually going to make this a tiny bit wider. So we're going to start creating a progress bar that is connected to this percentage. So we're going to select cell E7 and we're going to do equals sparkline open parentheses, and then if you have your formula suggestions active, then you're going to see that. If you don't, you can click on this question mark right here, and then you're going to get help for the formula. So you can see an example of what the sparkline function is expecting. So it's expecting data, and then it's expecting a set of options. So we're going to do equals sparkline open parentheses, and right after the parentheses, we're going to click on cell D7. So cell D7 is going to be our data, and then we're going to do a comma. So now we have to give it our options. So what we're going to tell it is our chart type, which is going to be a bar, and then the maximum value of our progress bar, which in our case, it's going to be 100%. So you can see an example of how it's going to look like down here. So I'm going to do curly braces, and then I'm going to open quotations, and I'm going to start by giving it the chart type. So I'm going to type in the word chart type, that's with 2 T's, make sure you add them both, and then close quotations. So now we're going to give it the chart type. So we're going to do a comma, open quotations, and it's going to be a bar, then close quotations. So that's our first pair of values. And for our second pair of values, we're going to add a semicolon, and then we're going to do quotations, and we're going to do max. close quotations, and now we have to give it our maximum value. So we're going to do a comma, and that's going to be 100% with no quotations. So we're going to do 100%. And since we opened these curly braces, now we have to close them. So we're going to close those curly braces, and we're also going to close the parentheses. So I'm going to leave the formula right there so you can make sure that yours looks exactly like mine. You can pause the video, and when you're ready, you're going to press enter on your keyboard. So if you added the 50%, this is what you should be seeing, a progress bar that is filled halfway there. And if you manually change this to 75%, for example, then that should move properly. So you can play around with your progress bar and make sure that it is working properly. And once it is, we can move on to actually making this percentage dynamic. So we're going to add a couple of tasks. We're going to add task 1 and task 2. So whenever we check these boxes, we want this percentage to change. And once this changes, since we already connected the progress bar to it, our progress bar will also change accordingly. So what we need to do is we need to connect this percentage to our checkboxes. Now, the way we get that percentage, and just a little reminder, don't follow along, is we need to divide the number of checked boxes by the total number of tasks. So if we had 10 tasks and only 5 checked boxes, you don't have to do this. The way we would get the percentage would be equals the number of checked boxes divided by the total number of tasks. So this should give us 50%. Now this is a decimal, so I can just click on format as percent and we get the 50%. So if I check 10 boxes, that formula would give me 100%. 0 boxes, that would give me 0%. So you get the idea. So that's exactly what we need to do on this cell right here. We need to first figure out the number of checked boxes and then divide that by the total number of tasks. So before we jump into that formula, let's go ahead and add 4 tasks. And then let's just check one box. So we should get, whenever we're done with our formula, we should get 25% as a result over here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select cell D7 and I'm going to delete my placeholder percentage. This is going to happen. We're going to fix it later. Don't worry about it. So on cell D7, I'm going to do equals. And the first thing I'm going to figure out is the number of checked boxes. But it's important to only take into consideration a checked box whenever there is a task assigned to it. So if I were to check this box, I don't care about it. I don't want to know that this box is checked because there is no task in here. So we need to check for 2 conditions. We need to check that there is a task, and we also need to check that the box is checked. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the count ifs function. So we're going to do count ifs with an S at the end. We're going to open parentheses, and our first condition is going to be if there is a task in here. So we're going to select the range from cell E8 to cell E14, which holds our task. We're going to do a comma, and then the way we're going to say is not empty is we're going to open quotations. We're going to use these greater than and less than symbols, and then we're going to close quotations. So what we're saying here is if the task range is not empty, and then for our second condition, we're going to do a comma. We're going to select the range from cell D8 to cell D14. We're going to do a comma, and then we're going to check if the value is true. So whenever a box is checked, the value is true, and if it's not checked, the value is false. And we're going to close parentheses. So this is what it should look like. You should have the task range, and if the task range is not empty and the checkbox value is true, then you can increase the counter. So what this is going to give us is the number 1. Our total number of checked boxes. Now, I'm not going to press enter. I'm just going to keep going. We already have a total number of checked boxes, and now we need to divide it by the total number of tasks. So we're going to do slash, and then we're going to count the total number of tasks. So in this case, it's just one condition if this range is not empty. So I'm going to do count if, open parentheses, and then I'm going to select my task range. So everything from cell E8 to cell E14. I'm going to do a comma, and once again, I'm going to do this is not empty thing I did over here. So I'm going to open quotations, less than, greater than symbols, close quotations, and then close parentheses. So make sure your formula looks exactly like mine. We have our total number of checked boxes divided by our total number of tasks. So you can pause the video, and once you're ready, you're going to press enter. And if it's all working properly, you're going to see 25% over here because we have 4 tasks and only 1 checked box. So if I keep on checking boxes then my percentage is going to work properly. And since that percentage is already connected to the progress bar over here, that's going to change properly as well. Now we just have one issue. Go ahead and uncheck all of your boxes and then delete all of your tasks. If you do that, you're going to get this horrible thing over here because we're trying to divide by 0 since there are 0 tasks. So what we need to do to fix that is we're going to select cell D7 and we're going to add something to the formula. So right after the equal sign and before the first countifs, you're going to type in if error, open parentheses, and then you're going to go all the way to the very end of the formula. You're going to do a comma and then we're going to do 0%. And we're going to close parentheses. So basically we're saying if what I did here ends up being an error, you're going to show a 0%. So once I press enter, I'm going to get a 0% and then my progress bar is going to work properly because 0% is a valid value. So before moving on, maybe add a couple of tasks and then just check the boxes and make sure that everything is working properly. And we can move on to creating the start date feature. So before I do that, I'm just going to select the percentage on the progress bar and I'm going to give those an outer black border. And then up here, this is where my first date is going to be. So I'm going to select cells D6 and E6 and I'm going to merge them together using this merge cells button right here. And then I'm going to give those an outer black border. So this is what it's going to look like. And what I'm looking to do, and I'm actually going to delete this. So what we're going to do now, if we look at the example, is whenever the user double clicks on this cell, they can select a start date, and that start date is what you're going to see on this first day, and then the whole calendar is going to adapt accordingly. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to add this feature, and we're going to connect it to this first day over here. So you're going to select cell B3 in your tutorial, and you're going to click on data validation. And then this sidebar is going to appear to the right. So you're going to click on add rule. And then from this criteria option, you're going to select this drop down and you're going to select the option that says is valid date. Then you're going to click on this option that says reject the input. So if it's not an actual date, then you're going to reject the input. So make sure you have is valid date as the criteria and then you reject the input if it's not a valid date and then you click on done. So apparently nothing happened, but if you double click on cell B3, then a calendar will appear. So go ahead, double click and select a date. So now that we have our start date over here, we might want to format it so it looks a bit prettier, maybe something like this. So to do that, I'm going to select cell B3 and I'm going to click on format, number, and then custom date and time almost all the way down. So I'm going to click there. This window will appear and you can select a formatting option from this list. This is the one that I like. So you can scroll down and find one that you like. And once you select it, you can click on apply. So that's what it's going to look like now. And then we're going to make sure that the same date appears on our first day. So we're going to select cell D6 where our first date is going to be. And then we're going to do equals. And we're going to click on cell B3, which holds our selected start date. And we're going to press enter. So it should already be formatted this exact same way. All we're doing is referencing whatever the user selected over here. And if you don't like the formatting in here, or you're not getting the same formatting, you can just select this first day. And again, click on format, number, custom date and time, and then pick one that you like. So I'm just going to leave it like that. You can also pick a different one and it's going to be fine. And then I'm going to click on apply. So once we have this, maybe it's time to start giving it a little bit of formatting. So I'm going to click on this rectangle right here, right above row 1. So if you click there, you're going to select the entire tab. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to center everything. So I'm going to click on horizontal align and then I'm going to pick the one in the center. Then I'm going to click on vertical align and I'm going to select middle. And then on this text wrapping option, I'm just going to leave it as wrap. So now it looks a bit better. I want the whole thing to be centered, but I actually want this to be aligned to the left. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to select my task range from cell E8 to cell E14. I'm going to click on horizontal align again, and I'm going to pick the one to the left. So I centered everything because I want absolutely everything to be centered, but I like it when my lists are aligned to the left. So that's why I did that here, but you can do it however you prefer. Now this is looking pretty good, and we're almost ready to copy it and paste it everywhere else so we can build our entire calendar. But let's give it some colors first, some background colors to make it look pretty. And then we're going to play around with conditional formatting to do two things to make sure that the current day is highlighted in a different color. As you can see in the example, today is February 14th, so that's highlighted in a different color. And we're also going to make sure that our tasks are scratched whenever we check the box. So I'm going to start by selecting cell D6 and I'm going to give it a background color. So I'm going to choose a color that I already have here and I'm going to show you what value you need to add if you want that same color. So you're going to select cell D6 and then you're going to click on this plus sign right here that says add custom color. And you're going to go ahead and in this hex value area, you're going to copy the same value that I have here. So you can pause the video. And once you get this color, you can click on OK, or you can pick whatever color you prefer. So I picked that one, and then I'm going to change the text color to white. And now I'm going to apply my conditional formatting rule. So I'm going to select the date again, and I'm going to click on Format, Conditional Formatting. And from this section right here that says Format Cells If, I'm going to click on that drop down, and I'm going to select the option that says Date Is. And then from the drop down right below, it happened immediately right out of the box for me, but if it doesn't happen for you, you're going to select this option and then you're going to find the one that says today. So our rule is if the date is today, then this is the formatting style that we're going to apply. So I'm going to pick a fill color and I'm going to show you which one I'm using in a moment. So if you want this exact one, you can click on this plus sign right here. And again, you can go ahead and copy this value. So you can pause the video. Once you have this color, you can click on OK. And I'm going to leave everything else as it is. All I want is for the background to change. So make sure that it looks exactly like this for you. And then you can click on Done. So now to make sure that works, and you can close the sidebar if you like. To make sure that works, I'm going to double click on the start date and I'm going to select today's date. So make sure you select the current day for whenever you're following along with the tutorial. For me, it's February 14, 2024. And that becomes this darker purple that I chose. And if I choose a different day, then it goes back to the original formatting that I chose. And finally, I'm going to select that date again, and I'm just going to make it bolder. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to click on this bold button right here. And now I'm also going to change the progress bar color to match a color that I like. So I'm going to choose this green one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the formula to add a third pair of values. So as you can see, there's this first pair of values. There's a semicolon in between. The second pair of values. So the next thing I'm going to do after the percentage is I'm going to add another semicolon. And then I'm going to do open quotations. And I'm going to add the text color 1 with the number 1. And then I'm going to close quotations. I'm going to do a comma. I'm going to open quotations. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to copy this value that I added over here. So this hex value that starts with a hashtag and is followed by 6 characters is a hex value that represents the green color that I showed you in the example. So you can pause the video, you can copy it. And once you do, you're going to close quotations. So you should have semicolon after the percentage, color 1 in between quotations, and then in between quotations, you can add this hex value, which represents the green color that I chose. You can also go online and find other hex values for a different color, but you can just for the tutorial follow along and add this value right here. So make sure that your formula looks like this. And once I press enter, my progress bar turned green. And then finally, I'm going to add the scratching effect. So I'm going to select all my task range, everything from cell E8 to cell E14. And then I'm going to click on Format, Conditional Formatting. And then on this Format Rules option where it says is not empty, I'm going to click that. I'm going to scroll all the way down and I'm going to find the option that says Custom Formula Is. So I'm going to select that. And then I'm supposed to add that custom formula over here. So I'm going to do equals D8 equals true. So what's happening here is that my first selection for the range is cell E8. So in my custom formula, I'm working as if only cell E8 existed. So I want this formatting style that I'm going to create to be applied to cell E8 whenever cell D8 is true. So cell E8 is the task, that's where the formatting is being applied, and then cell D8 is the checkbox. So if the checkbox is true, then the formatting will be applied. And whenever I'm building my custom formula, I'm building it as if only cell E8 existed, but it's actually going to adapt. So each row, each task is going to be checking the value of its corresponding checkbox. And if it's true, it's going to get this formatting applied. And our formatting will be, I'm going to change the fill color to none. I'm going to change the font color to maybe this gray over here, this maybe this fourth gray from left to right. And then I'm going to pick this strike through option over here, and I'm also going to make it italic. So as you can see, if you have any checkboxes selected, you're going to see the formatting get applied immediately. So make sure your range looks like this, and then your custom formula looks like this. Select your formatting, and then you can click on done. And now I can close this sidebar. Now let's add some final formatting details to this. It's pretty much ready to be copied and pasted to create the rest of the calendar. We're just missing a few things. We're gonna make this smaller just so it fits a bit better. So we're gonna select everything from the percentage from cell D7 to cell D14. And then we're going to change the font size. So we're going to jump over here and we're going to replace this with 9. We're going to press enter. So that fits a bit better. I'm going to add a background color to the percentage cell. So I'm going to select cell D7. I'm going to click on fill color, and maybe I'm going to add this gray, the second one from right to left. And finally, as you can see from the example, I'm going to get rid of the grid lines. So as you can see, there are no grid lines here, there are no grid lines here, and the ones you have here are pretty light. That's because I created them manually so I could get rid of the ones found by default. So what we're going to do is we're going to select everything from cell D8 to cell E14, and we're gonna add some inner gray borders. So I'm gonna click on borders, I'm gonna change the color, I'm gonna pick this third gray from right to left, and then I'm gonna click on inner borders. So that's this option right here, just so I don't mess up the black borders I already added as outer borders. So as you can see, these grid lines became lighter, and once I get rid of the whole thing, what's going to remain are these grid lines that still look nice and not as harsh as this. So once we did that, we're pretty much ready to create a second day. And what we're going to do to make sure that we're also copying the exact same width is we're going to pick a width. So make sure that they now look exactly like you want them. Maybe make the checkbox one smaller and the one for your tasks a bit wider. So once it looks the way you want it, you're going to click on the column D and you're going to drag all the way to column E. So this is going to select the entire column, including the width. So now I'm going to copy. I'm going to click on column F and I'm going to paste. So as you can see, that copied absolutely everything, including the width of the columns. So each of these are now the exact same size, and we need to change a few things to make sure it's working properly. As you can see, we don't have a date over here. So I'm going to uncheck all boxes and I'm going to delete my tasks just so it's completely empty. And then I'm going to jump into this date cell right here. So as you can see, this formula, it tried to adapt. This is referencing cell B3. When I copied it, it tried to adapt, so now it's referencing cell D3, which it's not what we want. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna delete this formula on cell F6, and I'm going to replace it with my own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one day to this date over here. So first I need to check if there is actually a date in here. If I don't check if there's a date in here and I add one day to an empty space, I'm gonna get a date that makes no sense. So you're gonna select cell F6 and we're gonna do equals if, open parentheses, and then I'm gonna click on cell D6. So if cell D6 is not empty, and we're gonna do that by using these greater than, less than symbols, and then quotation, quotation. So if cell D6 is not empty, comma, I'm going to take cell D6, so you're gonna click on cell D6, and you're gonna do +1. And if it is empty, you're gonna do a comma again. If it's empty, then I want this current cell to also be empty, and then you're gonna close parentheses. So make sure it looks exactly like this. And once it does, you're gonna press enter. So what should happen is you should be seeing the next day. Now we're gonna play around a bit just to make sure that the formatting was also applied properly. So you're gonna select a different start date. You're gonna select the start date for today, your own current day, and you're gonna see that the first day is highlighted. Now you're gonna select yesterday as your start date, and then your second day should be highlighted. So if this is happening, everything is working properly. Add a couple tasks, make sure that your progress bar, your second progress bar is working fine. So once everything is working properly, just delete any task and any checkboxes, leave them unchecked for the second day. And this is the date that we're going to copy and paste until we get 7 days over here. And the reason why I'm copying this second one and not this first one is that this formula, it's the same formula that we're gonna have for every other day on this week. we're just going to keep on adding one to the previous one. So the moment I copy and paste the second day, it's all going to work properly. So make sure it's empty. And then you're going to select column F and you're going to drag to column G. You're going to copy. Then you're going to click on column H and you're going to drag all the way to column Q. So 10 columns for the 5 days that we have left. So you have a column for the checkboxes, a column for the tasks. So we're selecting 10 columns and then we're going to paste. And since we selected it from up here, we're also pasting the width. So now make sure that every single one of these days is working properly. It's just adding one day to the previous day. Once you're sure that everything is working fine, you're going to go ahead. You're going to delete everything that you have on the first day. So make sure they are all empty. No tasks and no checkboxes, because then if you copy it with tasks and checkboxes, you're going to have to manually delete them. So make sure they are completely empty. The dates are working properly. And you're going to select this entire area, everything from cell D6, your first date. You're going to click and drag and select all the way to cell Q14. So we're selecting all 7 days. And once you're sure you have this range, we're going to copy. Then you're going to click on cell D15 and you're going to paste. So it's not going to work properly because there is one thing that we still need to do. The formula in here is adapting from the formula up here. And as you may recall, this formula is referencing this. So now this is trying to reference this other cell. It adapted, but we don't want that. So what we want is for this to be this date plus 7 days. So I'm going to delete everything on cell D15. And I'm going to do equals. And once again, I'm going to check if this cell is not empty. And if it's not empty, I'm going to add 7 days. So I'm going to do if, open parentheses. I'm going to click on cell D6, which holds my first day, is not empty, greater than, less than symbols, quotation, quotation. So that's how I'm saying if cell D6 is not empty, pretty much the same thing we did up here. Then I'm going to do a comma and I'm going to take cell D6. So you click on cell D6 and you do plus 7. And if it is empty, then we're going to do a comma. We're not going to do anything. I also want this cell to be empty. So after the comma, you do nothing, close parentheses and enter. And as you can see, now the entire row is working properly because all we were missing is a date in this cell right here. So once you're sure everything is working properly, you're going to go ahead and you're going to copy this second row. So everything from cell D15 to cell Q23. So you select that range, you copy, you select cell D24 and you paste. Then you select cell D33 and you paste. And then you select cell D42 and you paste. And you can keep going as far as you want, or you can keep 5 weeks per tab. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you can always right click and duplicate. So you can keep 1 tab per month, for example. So now the calendar checklist is ready. And now what we're missing is this section up here and then a little bit of formatting just so it looks as pretty as this one. So what's happening over here, whenever I change the start date, so let's say I select a Friday, this is going to change accordingly. If I select Monday, for example, this is going to change accordingly. These are changing depending on the start date that I select. So what's going on here is all I'm doing is referencing the cell below. And behind the scenes, this cell right here is exactly the same date as this one. All I did was change the formatting so that instead of looking like a date, it would only show the weekday. So let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to jump to cell D2 and I'm going to select everything from cell D2 to cell E3 and I'm going to merge, and then I'm also going to give it a black outer border and I'm going to give it a background color. So I'm going to pick this color right here and I'm going to show it to you in a moment. So if you want that one, you can click on this custom color and you can copy this hex value over here so you can pause the video if you want. And then I'm going to click on OK and I'm going to make the text color white. Now I'm going to select that cell and I'm going to do equals and I'm going to click on cell D6, which holds this first day in the calendar. I'm going to press enter. So this is what it's going to look like. It's just the very same date, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that cell and then I'm going to format it differently. So I'm going to click on format, number, custom date and time, and whatever it is I have here, I'm going to delete it. So if you place your cursor to the left of this arrow and you start deleting things, you can delete the whole thing and you can build your own format. So I'm going to click on this arrow right here and I'm going to select the option that says day. And now within this day, there are other options. So I'm going to click on day And I'm going to choose the one that says day as full name. And once it looks like this, you're going to click on apply. So now what you're seeing is Tuesday. I'm actually going to make the font bigger. So I'm going to change the font size to 12. I'm going to press enter and I'm going to make it bold. So once it looks the way you want to, all you're going to do is you're going to copy that cell. You're going to click on cell F2. You're going to drag and you're going to select everything from cell F2 to cell Q3. And once you see this range selected, you're going to paste. And now everything is adapting properly. So if I select a Sunday, for example, you're going to see that all those weekdays are changing properly. So that's pretty much it for the functionality. And now let's add the last bit of formatting to make it look this way. Let's remove the grid lines and let's make sure that this header always remains at the very top. So I'm going to start by making these rows a bit smaller and I want to change their sizes at the same time. So to do that, I'm going to select row 1 by clicking on the number 1. Then I'm going to press Command on my keyboard. I'm on a Mac, or Control if you're on Windows. And without releasing, you're going to click on row number 4 and then you're going to click on row number 5. So once you have all 3 of those selected, you can just make one of them smaller and they will all become smaller. And then I'm going to do the same thing for these columns. So I'm going to click on column A to select the entire thing. Then I'm going to press Command on my Mac or Control on your Windows. And without releasing, you're going to click on column C. So that way you're going to be able to change this column widths at the same time. And now I'm going to make column B a bit wider. I'm going to give this start date a background color and a border. So I'm going to click on fill color and I'm going to give it this second gray from right to left. And then I'm also going to give it a black outer border. Now it's looking pretty decent, and to make it look even better, I'm going to change the font. So I'm going to select the entire thing by clicking on this rectangle over here. And then I'm going to select the font. Maybe this one, Comforta. That's the one I was using, but you can pick whichever one you prefer. I'm going to make this start date maybe bold. And now let's make sure that these weekdays are always staying at the top, the same way as in the example. So I'm going to click on row 4 to select the entire thing. And then I'm going to click on View, Freeze. And I'm going to select the option that says up to row 4. And now that header, those weekdays are always going to be at the top. And finally, the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the grid lines. So I'm going to click on View, Show, and then Grid Lines. And that makes the grid lines disappear. So that's it for this video. I hope you like it. I hope you find it useful. As I mentioned, the link to this file is in the description. And if you would like to purchase a more advanced version, I'm going to leave a link to my 12-month calendar to-do list in the description. You get 12 monthly tabs and dates will be filled automatically depending on the first month that you select. There's 3 sections. The first one is meant for routine tasks, stuff that you do more than once per week. So maybe exercise 3 times a week. So whenever you check 3 boxes, this specific task reaches 100%. So you get this section, you get a section for weekly tasks, and then you get a section that looks very similar to what we just created. The only difference is it also includes a drop down so you can assign a category. So I'm going to leave the video to this other product in the description in case this is something you're interested in. And you can also just stick to this one. It's pretty nice. So I hope you like this. I hope you find it useful. Please let me know in the comments if you made it this far and if you found this to be too easy, too hard, or what other things you would like me to create. So see you in the next video and thank you so much for watching.